converted man here. I enjoy Professor Dave Explains as a channel. I find his content engaging and informational. I find that he has a lot to teach on a wide variety of subjects. But at the end of the day, he is human and can and will make mistakes, and that's okay. It's okay to make a mistake. We all do it, and we can learn from it and grow. I have 3 videos about this particular subject regarding Professor Dave and James Tour. The first analysis I did was live, in which I said I don't think that he's committing an ad hominem. I realized that doing a live analysis was not something I was very good at, and when I went back to listen to the debate proper, I realized, yes, he did indeed do this fallacy. In fact, he did it multiple times, and that's not good. And I need to say that that's what happened, so I did. I left up my first video because I'm okay with being wrong. And I made a final video where I asked and presented a question about ad hominems in general. This idea that if we say that, well, you suck, that's why your argument sucks, that's what an ad hominem is, and that's the only time that it's committed. But no, there's many other examples of ad hominem out there, and that the example shouldn't be confused for the fallacy itself. On his video, where he debated James Tour, I asked, why the ad hominem, Dave? And you can read his response here. He says, I don't know what it means, and I am a dickhead. I'm not sure if being a dickhead is related to not knowing what it means or not. Perhaps there's an association, causation, linkage between the two that I'm unfamiliar with. On his video where he analyzes James' performance during that debate, I left this comment that the ad hominems didn't help, and that he was wrong about what ad hominem means in that video that I am commenting on. But yes, James was incoherent, and the debate was kind of a wash. But at least I can learn science from the debunking of that debate, and that's a positive. Also, James did commit ad hominems at other times and other places, and then I mentioned that Lee shouldn't have tweeted out something that he didn't mean, because apparently the scientist Lee tweeted something that James was able to use as a cherry-picked quote, and I concluded that we really shouldn't take tweets that seriously anyways, but apparently we do in today's day and age. Dave says that I should actually watch the video and learn what ad hominem means. At least this time I'm not a dickhead. Before I get to that video that Dave has explaining what an ad hominem is, here's a few websites that explain what an ad hominem is. Of criticism directed against a person rather than what that person says. Appealing to feelings or prejudices rather than intellect. Marked by or being an attack on an opponent's character rather than by answer to the contentions made. An ad hominem remark appeals to personal feelings instead of logical reasons. Attacking an opponent's character or motives rather than answering the argument or claim. Or as Douglas Walton put it in Ad Hominem Argument Studies in Rhetoric and Communication, the abusive type of ad hominem argument occurs where one party in the discussion criticizes or attempts to refute the other party's argument by directly attacking the second party personally. This argument has the form, my opponent here is a bad person, therefore you, the audience, should not accept his argument. However, I could be wrong about Dave committing several ad hominems. In his review of ad hominem arguments, Donald Vinnie says the following. While some logic texts define ad hominem arguments as fallacious, others recognize exceptions on the grounds that, in a court of law, a witness's character is directly relevant to whether his or her testimony is judged reliable. Walton takes that idea a step further and defends the thesis that no ad hominem argument is inherently fallacious, but that it is good or bad depending on the argumentation context. He emphasizes that ad hominem arguments are inherently weak and fragile forms of argument. However, they can be warranted when morals and policies are at issue. If Bernard Russell gives us advice on how we should manage our lives, it is reasonable, says Walton, to ask how Russell managed his personal affairs. So, in saying that Professor Dave is committing an ad hominem, I'm not necessarily saying that he is performing a logical fallacy. I'm just saying that he's committing an ad hominem, which might not be a logical fallacy, depending on how we look at it and analyze it. But then that would mean I'm still correct. Technically.
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
And so, with all that out of the way, here is Professor Dave explaining an ad hominem.
Now, before diving in, one thing must be made perfectly clear. Anyone who accused me of using ad hominem attacks has no idea what they're talking about.
By saying I'm doing X, you do not know what you are talking about. Therefore, you're wrong. Ah, yes. This is an interesting way to position yourself in any intellectual framework. If you accuse me of doing this thing, then you just prove that I'm not doing that thing and you don't know what you're talking about. I wonder if I could use this in other situations. Hey, Dave owes me $1 million. And if he says that he doesn't owe me $1 million, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So, obviously, he owes me $1 million then.
Ad hominem is a logical fallacy whereby someone makes an argument based on irrelevant characteristics of an opponent.
That word irrelevant just kind of made its way into here somehow. Not sure how that happened. So that seems to be the mistake that is made in this video presentation regarding ad hominems. It's not about irrelevancies of the character. It's about the character. Full stop. Whether it's relevant or not is in itself irrelevant. It's still an ad hominem. Although, as I said previously, it might be okay to use the ad hominem in this case.
Calling James a liar is not irrelevant because he objectively lies about the topic we were debating.
But it is still an ad hominem.
I showed very clearly in all of my videos and in the debate how he lies, misquotes people, distorts information, and in general has zero integrity in approaching this topic.
Correct, and doing all of that is an ad hominem. Every single one of those things is its own independent ad hominem.
So he is a liar and a fraud. If someone is convicted of stealing, they are a thief. If someone is convicted of murder, they are a murderer. Referring to someone who has murdered as a murderer is not ad hominem.
Well, it might be. It depends upon how you're framing that particular sentence. This murderer we know has murdered in the past. Therefore, they must have murdered this person. No, that doesn't necessarily follow. Although it might be a good rhetoric, it is not good logic.
It's what they are. James is a liar. End of story. If I had presented James as a thief, or a misogynist, or bad father, or anything like that, that would be ad hominem, because it is not pertinent.
It would be an ad hominem, but it's still an ad hominem even if it is pertinent. It's just, that's how it is. It's just perhaps not a fallacious ad hominem. Calling somebody a murderer who has murdered in the past is still an ad hominem. It's just not necessarily fallacious. It just depends on the context.
I didn't do that once. I showed how he objectively lies about all the science related to this topic, and he therefore does not deserve the respect that would be granted to an opponent arguing in good faith. Period.
Whether or not you respect your opponent should be irrelevant. What's relevant is the argument at hand. You certainly have to present yourself in a certain way. You didn't show up in pajamas because your opponent is somebody not worth your time and energy. You didn't show up in a clown suit. You didn't do things that would make you look bad to the audience, both present and future audiences. And I'm very glad that you didn't say anything that would insult the audience, because that would have been really bad.
Anyone who thinks this is not relevant to the discussion is delusional.
Yes, by saying that I'm wrong, you are a bad thing.
James, on the other hand, has committed plenty of ad hominem attacks on me.
That really doesn't matter. Just because he's done it doesn't make it okay for you to do it. Conclusion. Did Dave commit an ad hominem? Yes. Is it the fallacious type of ad hominem, or the type of ad hominem where we really don't care because it's relevant to the topic at hand? My view is that analyzing those 10 minutes where Dave makes the topic about his opponent rather than the topic of are we clueless about the origin of life, that then Dave crosses into the territory of this being a fallacious attack against the person rather than a warranted attack against the person. Had he included more about the origin of life in those opening moments, then I would side on the favor of Dave in saying that these ad hominems can be excused because the context permits it. He could have devoted 5 minutes to showing that his opponent was a fraud, and then 5 minutes to talking about why we know that there is stuff about the origin of life and showing that, yes, we know things about it, therefore we're not clueless, and get that in there too. Perhaps switch those around so that the attacks come last and the science stuff comes first. Regardless, this is what he did. And, it's okay. Made a mistake. It happens. Could I be wrong about my analysis? Absolutely. And people disagree with me. And that's fine. It's okay to disagree with me. I could be wrong. Regardless, I still hold Dave in a high regard. I don't view him as a bad guy or a bad faith actor. I have nothing to say negative about him as a person. I like his content and I actually learn a lot from his videos. I do think that sometimes we, as humans, when we get pointed out to us that we've made an error, that we can kind of go, no, I didn't, and kind of dig in our heels and double down and triple down and say, no, it's not that way because of this, that, and the other, even when it is that way. Regardless, I do hope that Dave and everybody else that watches this does not view this as a personal attack against Dave. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good faith actor. I think that he's doing the best that he knows how to do, and I enjoy his educational content, and I do learn something from him. In the case of this particular fallacy, he was wrong. That's all. It's very simple. Thanks for watching. Take care. Be skeptical. So, before I get to the video though, oh my god, what the fucking hell?